Hi everyone, welcome back to the Elite Transformations podcast. I hope everybody's doing well. Peak of the week, Ricardo.
Peak of the week. On Saturday, it was wonderful weather. I woke up well early and I woke up before sunrise and I went for a walk around the golf course.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to wear my nice, massive winter jacket for the first time, put my wellies on, take the dog out, sunrise coming up, and it was lovely. It was beautiful.
That's nice.
Sunrise walk when the sun hits the skin in the cold. Loved it.
That's good.
Yeah, that was
Do you
lovely.
see any wildlife?
Some deers. A deer or deers? Like sheep or sheeps? It's sheep, but
I don't know.
deers? I saw some deer.
I think it's deer with no S.
How about you? Peak of the week?
Pick of the week. I am getting like a solid balance on the handstand, which is like a good...
Nice.
I feel like that's progress for me. So thank you for Ben and Haley's expertise in helping. But yeah, that feels like it's progressing, which is really nice.
And that's nice because you've been working on that for so long.
A long time.
And the thing with the handstand is it's a skill. And you have to fall over 1,000 times before you can make it.
I think I have nearly.
Right?
I think I've fallen over about 1,000 times.
So it's like serious perseverance with that.
Yes, it's an interesting challenge, and I think as much for the body as it is for the brain. So I think I'm learning lots through that.
Patience.
So, patience. Apparently, calmness, steadiness, focus. Persistence, all of those things. So it's been I'm enjoying the journey, but I'm now seeing, just a little bit of a result, which is nice. So that's good.
Cool. Nice. Well done.
Thank you.
Right. What's the plan today?
So today we are talking about a subject that often goes unnoticed. It's the language that we use around food and ourselves. So it doesn't matter where you are in your fitness, your wellness journey, your lifestyle journey, whatever we word it. It's looking at the language that we use and the impact that has on us and our relationship with food. So again, we want to kind of plant some seeds and cultivate a little bit of curiosity around how one talks about food and the impact that might have around positively or negatively.
We'll cover topics such as nourish versus punish.
Yeah.
And good food versus bad food.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
Cool. So I think often as well what we do, and I'll start talking about this from a kind of an inflexibility or rigidity, so inflexible thinking, and I think it's really important to go a bit greyish here, so be more in the grey. Go on.
Greyish, grey,
beige, greyish,
rather than black versus white.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle, greyish.
When we start thinking about this, so again, when we're looking at food, the cognitive distortion, we have black or white thinking. That's obviously a very well documented fact. And I think what happens is that often when we think about foods, when we put foods into good or bad categories, there's no greyish, it's black or white, which again, when we're looking from the brain point of view, is a cognitive distortion. And then we label foods good or bad and not realizing that again that has an impact on what we're thinking. I'd like to get us all more comfortable with greyish. Let's start with nourish, not punish. We're looking at kind of how we're wording things. So when we think about nourishing ourselves, what does that cultivate when we begin to think about we're nourishing ourselves? So I get to go and move my body, I get to celebrate that my body can move, rather than I have to go to the gym because I ate something and I'm going to punish myself or burn off the calories. It's looking really gently at the language that we're using in our own brains to encourage ourselves rather than punish ourselves. So again, more comfortable with the greyish. So what are we doing to nourish ourselves? How are we nourishing? How are we celebrating? How, again, we're leading ourselves to something that's feeling more comfortable than punishing and sort of beating ourselves there. In my head, I was like, carrot and stick.
I was just about to say, nourish, punish, carrot or a stick is how you're motivated. So the outcome is going to be the same.
Yes.
We're going to go to the gym or we're going to prepare and eat this food item. It's just, can we make it more positive by encouraging ourselves to do it rather than punishing ourselves to do it.
Absolutely.
It's our approach to that
Yes.
thing, isn't it?
And that cultivates more of a compassionate way of looking at ourselves, and then often we're then more driven to do something if we're cheering ourselves on rather than punishing ourselves for something that we've done in the past. So simply nourish, not punish. So it's looking at that. I get to go to the gym.
I was just about to say, you often say, I get to go to the gym rather than I have to go to the gym. That's something we've spoken a lot to clients about.
Yeah.
And it's like, I celebrate my body for moving rather than punishing myself that I have to go to the gym and I have to work out so hard in order to get this result. It's like, no. I get to. My body's amazing.
Yeah,
it moves.
I'm celebrating my body and in all the wonder it can do, and that it doesn't matter how you're moving your body at the gym. What's really integral is that you're celebrating that your body can do that. And even if you're recovering from injury, it's like I'm nourishing myself. I'm gonna rehab this injury to a point where then it gets to then strengthen. So again, it's all about that kind of compassion focused approach. Yeah.
Next, into good food versus bad food.
Great.
We would like you to start thinking of food on a spectrum. So on one end you have
less nutritionally
dense, and on the other end of the line you have nutritionally dense.
More
nutritionally dense. So food isn't this black or white, good or bad. You can't categorize food into good or bad camps. But what we can do, we can become aware and have the education around what is in our food, how much nutrients are there, and the benefit that food is going to give us. And it can be put on this sliding scale. So we can have some foods which are more nourishing and some foods which are less nourishing. Less nourishing foods aren't bad for you. You can have a bad diet. A bad diet would be having cake every single lunchtime.
Yeah, a build-up of, or a consistent build-up of less nutritionally dense food over time consistently is...
And very commonly, ultra-processed foods lead to poorer health outcomes. So if somebody's diet was highly ultra-processed, that would probably be a bad diet. That doesn't mean that each of those individual foods is categorized as bad, because it's what goes on in the majority of the diet. So we have this 80-20 rule. So we should be aiming to have 80% of our of our food through nutritious sources of food.
Nutritionally
dense on this sliding scale. If we're hitting 80% of our food intake through nutritionally dense foods, we're going to be really healthy, and probably most people will be healthier.
Yeah, and you're going to feel good. You're going to feel great. You're going to feel better.
Well.
You're going to sleep better. You're going to have more energy. All of those things that you get with more nutritionally dense food and a more well-rounded diet.
But that still leaves 20% left over, and that 20% can be whatever you like. We live in a world where fast food is very tasty. We socialise with highly processed foods, often chips, mayo, for me anyway. But having those things in there may bring us a massive amount of pleasure. We might enjoy it. It might make our life easier to live, that we can share experiences with other people and socialise more easily. So 80% of your food to be highly nourishing, 20% of your food can be whatever you want. I mean, if we're sticking to 80-20, we're going to be really, really quite healthy.
Yeah.
So this idea of good food versus bad food isn't actually very helpful, because then that leads into guilt. If you end up having a bad food,
or a bad lunch, or a bad X, Y, and whatever, it has an impact on, then we have the shame cycle that we hit, and then we feel like, oh, we've thrown the diet, like we've fallen off the diet wagon. And then you can punish yourself, or you think, oh, what's the point of carrying on doing this? And then you have like one bad meal potentially turns into like an entire day. So what we're wanting to do is, if we can reframe our thinking around food, and it's actually, I had a less nutritionally dense lunch, I'm going to focus on having a more nutritionally dense dinner
I'm going to have some
or
kale.
supper, kale on its own, we're kidding, then you can balance that. It's all about finding this balance within lifestyle rather than it being, falling off the wagon, then I'm bad, then I'm going to shame myself into doing that, and then I'm going to feel like I'm a piece of shit. So it's all, again, that's a real common cycle that we see. So what we're trying to do is preempt that by, again, looking at the language and navigating that in a way that's more helpful, less harmful.
And I think that goes into flexibility. It's when people say, I've gone off track. It's like, no, take the tracks away.
Yeah, have no tracks.
You don't need tracks because we can dynamically manage our food intakes throughout the week of calories or nourishing foods. Like you said, if we had a not so nourishing lunch, really lacked nutrients which were helpful for us or something like that. If we lacked those, then we can just bump them up later in the day. So it's this flexibility, and one non-nourishing meal doesn't eliminate the entire progress you've made in a week, potentially.
Yeah.
So it's you're not off track, get rid of the tracks. It's learning to be flexible.
Yeah, and having compassion for yourself. If it's something where you feel like you've slipped up, can you be compassionate around that and be like, it was just less nutritionally dense lunch or whatever you had, rather than it being like, ooh, I'm a bad person because I had this thing. I think it's just being more compassionate towards yourself.
Yeah.
So I think another thing that we should touch on is adding and not subtracting. So finding the joy and not removing everything. I think quite often there is this thought around like you have to ban everything and everything fun and everything nice. I think, and again, that dials up desire when we say we can't have any of these things. So gently, again, we're looking at what can we add in. So finding the joy in what we eat instead of obsessing over what we can't have. What we've already stated is nothing is off limits. We don't believe that you should ban any food at all. We just look at that 80-20 rule, and as much as you can, be mindful of it. So what can you add to nourish yourself in your diet rather than, which is, again, more nutritionally dense than something else, for example. So how can you add in rather than cut or take away?
For example, like desserts.
Yeah, so...
Okay, desserts, generally unnutritious, ultra-processed foods. If we're trying to reduce the amount of our ultra-processed foods in the diet and increase nourishing foods, rather than focusing on, I have to now eliminate pudding, dessert, I've got to sacrifice it in order to get to my goal. Okay, how about we just don't focus on that and we just change our approach and we say, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in a whole bunch more vegetables to my dinner. By doing that, you're probably going to be very full and then knock out pudding anyway. So we haven't focused on eliminating, subtracting, removing something from the diet.
You actually have in that example.
No, but we haven't focused on it.
Okay.
That's not what we've focused on. We've focused on increasing the amount of nourishing foods, adding into the diet, and therefore the knock-on effect is dessert isn't there.
I would go around this a different way.
All right.
I would look at, if you're a pudding person, because for you filling it up and doing the adding in more vegetables is good, but I love something sweet afterwards, so I would probably eat the vegetables and then I would be like, I'd like something else.
I'm like that too.
Yeah.
I like something sweet after.
So although we could do that, and that could be a way of kind of adding in more, I would then look at potentially, okay, what do I like? I like something sweet. What's the more nutritionally dense version of that something sweet? So for me, I really like medjool dates. They taste delicious, fudgy if you put them in the freezer.
Yeah, nice.
Rather than something that's less nutritionally dense that...
Profiteroles.
Well, yeah, or I mean, what I was thinking about was Percy Pigs.
Yeah.
I love a Percy Pig. So, and the same point where you're finding that balance between the two. So I think for me, it would be looking at kind of gently being like, okay, I'm going to have the dates rather than the Percy Pigs of an evening, because I do like something sweet after dinner. Or again, the same thing, if you like a chocolate bar, can you potentially switch it out for... So obviously dates have got way more nutrients in them than Percy Pigs, and the same thing about chocolate bars versus protein bars.
Yeah.
You know, there's more benefit to those, and they taste delicious. So again, it's gently about adding things in, I think, rather than removing them or removing dessert altogether. I think that's another point. The same thing, we often have like a Greek yogurt base and then something on top of it, which again is a nice experience, and it kind of takes the edge off that, oh, what do I want? Which is less likely. And again, if there's some protein, or if it's protein...
Some protein amount.
Some protein amount in there, you're going to do yourself a favour by, when we've talked about protein before with the satiety and all of those kind of things as well. So it's beneficial in that sense, I feel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Definitely. and that's also a really practical tool that we use as well, personally and with the clients.
Yeah.
This can also be applied to activity levels in the evening. So we can, if we add something in, if we add an evening activity in, that time we spend there is naturally going to replace time which we were potentially being sedentary watching TV. So by adding something in, we naturally are eliminating, taking out something else which is less helpful to us.
Yeah.
So we can look at it on a time point of view as well.
Yeah.
And to wrap up, the language that we use really matters.
Absolutely. So in regards to food or ourselves, if you can cultivate those kind of that nourishing, kind, nurturing, compassionate language and dialogue, it is really helpful. Just, really gentle when we think about kind of more carrot, less stick.
Yeah. And also that you don't need to be perfect. We're not aspiring to be perfect at all.
No, absolutely not. It's, again, flexibility, greige.
Take home from today. Be greige.
Be greige.
Be comfortable in the greige.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.
And we will see you next time.
See you soon.
Ya.